Okay, okay, Lynn, sorry, start over.
Well, I will just let Kelly kind of introduce herself. How's that?
Okay,
That's perfect. I haven't turned down anyone yet, Lynn, who's asked for a presentation. So
Thank you.
all you have to do is ask and we'll make it happen. Thank you guys so much for inviting a member of our program today to talk to your lake association. This is a great surprise on the first day of November. I thought a lot of the lake associations would be wrapping up for the year because we worked with a lot of associations this summer. My name is Kelly Amoth. I am an employee at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I'm one of 2 program coordinators for the Get the Let Out program. And I will tell you more about our program and what we are doing as we go through the presentation. Just in terms of logistics, Lynn and Curtis, can you give me a time frame? Like how long, when do I need to cut things off?
We had said about 30 minutes, right?
yeah, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And if the host could let me share my screen, that'd be great. That might be you, Curtis.
If you can remind me, let's see, I think I just say share somewhere here.
I think you just have to give permission to me.
Yeah, let's see, it's not under, well, I'll just make you host. How about that?
That is fine too.
Okay, just so long as you give it back to me. Okay, here you go, you're the host.
Perfect. And if there are any problems with my audio or my slides or anything during the presentation, please just let me know. So I can fix my internet connection. I'm at home right now, but it should be fine. But I always give that heads up as a warning. If people want to write questions to me during the presentation in the chat, that's fine too. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So whatever works best for you and your group is good with me. So let me share my screen. Perfect. Everybody should be seeing my black screen. Lynn came up with a great name for the presentation. She named it Getting the Let Out and the Loons In, the Loon Restoration Story. And I thought, you know what, that's got to be like the name of this in 2 years, right? Because we're kind of still in the beginning stages of really talking about the danger of lead to loons in Minnesota. So Lynn, I'm going to hold on to that if you don't mind. I'm just going to save that title for the future.
Curtis, actually.
Curtis came up with, okay, Curtis, have to give props where they're due. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the work that we're doing. So this all starts with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in April of 2010. And this is the largest marine oil spill in history. I remember this oil spill well for watching on the Today Show of seeing live oil spilling out into the Gulf of Mexico for months and months. And so the Deepwater Horizon is the name of the oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico that exploded. 11 people lost their lives that day and 17 were injured. And crude oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico until September of that year when they were finally able to seal the well. In that time, April, September, 210 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf and killed and affected an unknown number of marine wildlife. And when we talk about the effect of the marine ecosystem, we have to think about not only fish, mammals, also the fishery for all the people that make their living in the Gulf, and also thinking about the beaches. How do you get oil out of sand, and all the vegetation as well. So the reason why I'm here today is actually because of the settlement dollars that came out when BP reached their settlement money. And so the oil spill spread a great distance into the Gulf of Mexico, that entire area of red. And I know, thinking back about that oil spill, what I remember seeing are pictures like this, seeing pictures of pelicans covered in crude oil, seeing big pictures of, pictures of big birds like this. I have to believe that if a photographer got this photo, that someone else could get close enough to grab this bird and clean it up and rehab it and release it. But we'll never actually know the number of animals that died. And, you know, that's turtles, that's birds, that's dolphins, that's fish, that's everything in the Gulf. And also thinking about that place as a fishery for months and months and months, probably years, people who their subsistence was on the fishery, they couldn't make their livelihood that way because they weren't sure if it was safe to harvest the fish out of the Gulf. And so post Deepwater Horizon, and so this picture to me makes it feel like this was a really far away thing, right? And so, but what we found out is that there were long lasting effects to animals, not just in the Gulf, and our loons were actually affected too. A lot of research happened post Deepwater Horizon. And one of the research studies that happened came out of the U.S. Geological Survey Midwest Division over in Wisconsin. And Kevin Kenow led that research project. He's now retired, but his team, they implanted geolocators into loons. Loons are such big birds that they could not just have them attached to their bodies. They actually had to be surgically implanted. And through their work, they were able to find out the exact migratory patterns of loons leaving Minnesota to really show that our loons were right in that bullseye of the oil spill. And so that led to Minnesota applying for what is called an open ocean grant. So the natural resource damage assessment after the BP oil spill, a lot of that money stayed in the Gulf, as it should have. But Minnesota was one of, I think, only 2 states that actually got money. And so because we were able to show that our birds, our loons, were affected by this oil spill. And the effect of the oil spill wasn't actually on the adults. The timing of the event meant that many of the adults, we're talking early April, had already begun to migrate north. Adult loons are so driven with getting back to their home breeding lakes during that time that they're starting to begin that journey. And so, but the loons that were left in the Gulf were the juveniles. So just thinking about not that stereotypical plumage that we're used to seeing, but the juvenile loons. And juvenile loons will actually stay in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean for 2 to 4 years before they return to Minnesota to find their breeding lake or find a lake that's close to their origin lake. They don't get their adult plumage until they're 3 years old. And then they don't actually breed for the first 6 to 7 years of their life. And so they are just going to stay. They're kind of like nomads. They stay in the Gulf when there's lots of fish and the water is cool enough. And then they'll go to the Atlantic for the summer. And so they'll kind of bounce back and forth there. But what we are finding in the research, Rick Black, we're finding in the research actually, even a decade post Deepwater Horizon, is that the chemical dispersants that were used to clean up the oil are still being found in the tissues and the feathers of loons here in Minnesota. That research that Kevin Kenow and others did post Deepwater Horizon, they were able to estimate that 600 to 1,000 of our loons were lost. And I don't know about all of you joining the call today, if you have loons that you're used to seeing every summer that are your loons on your lakes. I see Lynn nodding. I used to work on a lake where I would see the same loons every summer. They become your loons. And we had a chance to talk with someone who was part of that research team right after Deepwater Horizon. And I said, how do I help make this number of 600 to 1,000 make sense to people? Because, you know, here in Minnesota, we have a lot of loons. And how do we say that 600 to 1,000 is a lot of loons and that's a big deal? And he put it this way, that you're thinking about 600 to 1,000 songs that are lost. Loons, they have their own songs that are tied to lakes. you're taking a loon out of the family structure, the family tree. So you're losing those generations, because loons as a species are a very long-lived species of bird. Right now, the longest lived loon is in its 30s. And so we're talking about long-term effect here to our population, which I think really helped the case of Minnesota receiving money from the Deepwater Horizon settlement. So BP had to pay out $20.8 billion. Minnesota received $7 million of that. $6 million has gone to the DNR for their work. And the MPCA, where I work, we received $1.27 million to pick up the Get the Lead Out program that was was worked on for about a decade. And so we are part of a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the DNR. We're all working together on this. We're all working for Minnesota's loons and restoring and protecting the population. So, and this is really more essential to you. So this is the 8-county focus area of the DNR for this part of their project, for the loon restoration project. And so this is really where we're trying to focus our efforts in collaboration with them as well. So this is Aiken, Becker, Beltrami, Cass, Clearwater, Crow Wing, Hubbard, and Itasca. And the DNR set this focus area because they determined that these counties had the highest population of loons. And so this is where they will be focusing their surveying efforts, exploring land acquisition opportunities, and potentially installing artificial nesting platforms. In terms of the progress of our work, I'm sure all of our lives have been disrupted by COVID and the pandemic in different ways. And so our program, the Get the Lead Out program, is a little bit behind on our work. The DNR, they didn't have a field season at all in 2020, so they were just able to start their field season this summer. So I would expect that they will be able to extend their work another year. I know that they are working on a loon-friendly lake registry. They're really also working a lot with lake associations as well. And they're still trying to finalize all their staffing as well. So I bet you'll hear the name Robert Basco. He's out of the Brainerd office of the DNR, and he's kind of, and he's in charge of this side of the program for the DNR. So that was a lot. I'm going to pause here. If anybody has a question, feel free to just ask it out loud or type it in the chat, whatever you want to do. If anybody has anything they would like me to pause on for a second.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the loon-friendly lake? What does that mean? And is there a process for becoming one, or?
Yeah, I think they're still building out that process. We do regular calls with the DNR, and I would say in my experience of talking to lake associations, everybody kind of wants to know what the DNR is doing. So I kind of try and make sure I speak correctly about what I think that they're doing or what they have in the works. I know that they'll have a website coming up. I know that they're really targeting lake associations in that 8-county focus area. They're hoping to have what they're calling a loon liaison. I think will be the person who is liaisoning from that lake association to the DNR program as well. So that maybe kind of answers your question, but I'm not really sure how they're building that out. But I think they're hopeful to have that online by 2022 in next summer. So the loons are gone now, so they have to like get all these things figured out, right? All right, so and
actually,
our species,
I heard a loon yesterday, so.
Oh, Lynn, that's great phenology. Gosh,
Yeah.
It must be a juvenile who is, maybe just hanging out.
I don't know.
It's already left.
Looked a little lonely or sounded a little lonely. I didn't see it.
I don't know. If it gets to November, I kind of get worried about those stragglers. Like they need to start getting a move on, but our fall has been so late, so
Yeah.
they'll be okay, hopefully. All right, so we're all, you know, the DNR, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the MPCA, we're all focused on the same species here, and that's the common loon. Minnesota, we are lucky. We have the second most loons in the entire country. We're just behind Alaska, and the population right now is an estimated 12,000. So that gets back to that question I've gotten from kids quite often in the past year. 600 to 1,000, Kelly, out of 12,000. So just focusing on what that means in the long term. And just to give you a little bit more loon information, there are other species of loons other than our common loon. There's also the yellow-billed loon, the red-throated loon, the black-throated loon, and the Pacific loon. So if you're in different parts of the country, you can see different loons, but we here in Minnesota only have the common loon. And so, and the reason why our program, we're focused on protection of the loon has a lot to do with lead poisoning. And this all gets back to, what do loons eat? They are piscivores, they are fish eaters. They sometimes will eat frogs, toads, leeches, but they are primarily fish eaters. And another factor here is that loons are visual predators, so that they need those clean, clear lakes in order to pursue and catch their prey. So I always, to go back to deep water, the estimate was that the oil sank 100 feet in the water column, which is about the depth that a loon can dive. So imagine those juvenile loons that were still there trying to dive through that very cloudy water to find food then that was contaminated with oil. And so because loons are fish eaters, and maybe this has happened to you, they will sometimes go after the fish that you are trying to catch. And this is one of the two ways that lead is ingested by loons. The primary way that loons ingest lead fishing tackle is through the fish that you are trying to reel in, perhaps. Or if your line breaks and the fish gets away, if it still has the tackle, and the loon consumes that fish, then they will have the tackle inside them as well. Loons, the other way that they consume fishing tackle is through picking up tackle that's been lost at the bottom of lakes. So loons have a muscular part of their stomach called a gizzard, and they need rocks to help digest the food in their body. And so they will pick up small pebbles, but a loon doesn't know the difference between a pebble and a piece of lost tackle. So that's another way that they will pick it up as they were diving. So this is my interactive portion of the meeting. This is time for your eagle eyes. And in this picture, I won't tell you how many, there are some split shot, which is over on the left, very common piece of fishing tackle. And I will give you 20 seconds to write into the chat how many split shot you can find.
2.
Five, 6.
Do I have to say winner gets a prize in order for everyone to participate? Curtis, thank you for offering your guess into the chat. Bruce. Oh, Bruce direct message me, Bruce. So Curtis has said 2. Bruce has said 12. Any other guesses? You can also say it out loud too. If you just want to unmute, that's fine. Carl says 9.
I know my numbers. I see more than 2, I think.
Curtis, you can change your answer if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, Lynn has said 12.
All I see is Victoria Fallens. What's that mean?
All right, I will end the suspense here, and I will let you know how many we have. I haven't done this in a while, so I have to count them myself. So we have 8. There were 8. So Carl, you were the closest. You said 9. So I like to do this activity to show it's really hard just to look at a photograph. Imagine a bird diving down to the bottom of the water, and how hard it would be. They would have no idea. So, and this is something that as anglers, we can prevent, right? Just by our choices. So this is an x-ray of a loon that died from lead poisoning. And on the right is all of the tackle they took out of that loon. So there is a swivel, there is a jig, there are 2 split shot, there is a hook. The estimate right now is that about 20-25% of loon deaths are caused by ingesting lead fishing tackle. And lead poisoning for a loon is a slow and painful death. So loons that are suffering from lead poisoning can't swim, they can't dive for food. And loons, as a species with very solid bones, they can't retreat to land, they cannot walk on land, so they can't really get away from the water. And the acid in their stomach is eventually, any tackle that's in their body is just going to be broken down. The lead will enter their bloodstream and then start to affect their organs. And lead poisoning is a death sentence in about 2 to 3 weeks for a loon. And it really doesn't take much. So just even one piece of split shot is enough to kill a loon. I had done presentations for kids, for school age kids a lot last year, virtually. And it wasn't until this summer that someone shared on our Facebook page a loon that she was a rehabber in northern Minnesota. And someone brought in a loon that was very ill. Now imagine, I wouldn't go and pick up a loon unless like I felt like it was in really dire straits, right? That beak is deadly, or could be deadly. And so, but somebody brought in this loon to her, and just seeing the video of a loon struggling and being sick with lead poisoning, it lit a new fire underneath me about this, because it's really hard to see any animal suffer, but seeing an animal suffer in a way that it doesn't need to, and that suffer a death that is completely preventable, you know, and she had to euthanize that loon too this summer. So our work is encouraging people to make different choices to prevent these unnecessary deaths. We already lost enough loons in the oil spill. We don't need to lose any more of them on our lakes here in Minnesota. So I get a lot of people at this point say, Kelly, how do I know if my fishing tackle is lead or not? And often I say, if you didn't buy it specifically as lead-free tackle, it probably has lead. You know, as a material, lead has been removed from so many commonly used products, from paint and gasoline to other things that affect our health, but it is still in fishing tackle and ammunition. And so I always say, well, if you still have the package, you can look for the Californian warning, which is on the back, because manufacturers are required to tell you if it contains lead. And this is all about human health, which is great. We need to know that warning about human health, but it doesn't say anything about the potential dangers to wildlife in this warning. And loons are not the only species in danger. You know, we're coming up on deer opener this weekend. And so there will be lots of gut piles out there with lead fragments in them that will be left for scavengers to feed on, like bald eagles. And trumpeter swans are herbivores, and they are very susceptible to lead poisoning too. They often collect quite a bit of lead that's left in the sediment of lakes. There's a lake very close to me where they document several swans dying each winter because the swans gather in this open area, and it's very popular with fishing. So, and these are all deaths that we can prevent just by making choices. And so our program, we're really trying to promote alternative. So we are saying, you know, we like fishing. I fish. My coworker fishes. We all care about fishing. We want people to keep fishing, but we want people to start using products that are not dangerous and deadly to wildlife. So we have worked really hard. We have a list, I just put it in the chat for you, of manufacturers that make lead-free tackle. And there are so many great different options, materials. We're really looking forward to ice fishing season this year to really promote tungsten. We have a lot of tungsten jigs that we're looking forward to getting into the hands of ice anglers. And tungsten is something that anglers already want to use because it performs better than lead. It's denser, it sinks faster, it's more sensitive. And another thing we're thinking about is how do we collect more lead? How do we do this in 2021? So these are some historical pictures. In the past, in the early 2000s, there were a lot of tackle exchanges. So people would bring in their tackle and they would collect some lead free. And over on the right, you can see some of the 8,000 pounds of tackle that were collected from 2000 to 2010. And looking at this year, we knew that our small team, we needed to start getting some lead collected, but we needed some help. And so what we rolled out last summer, which I'm looking forward to working with all of you to hopefully do this in your community next summer, is we just sent out these lead collection kits. So this was a box and it was filled with sample packs. Our sample packs have a few different types of lead-free fishing tackle in them. We sent them all around the state. And we did some virtual trainings just to talk about this issue a little bit so people would feel prepared talking about it to other people. And then we said, okay, good luck. And we watched people be so creative. So this was the 50 Lakes Property Owners Association. They had this at an annual event. People brought in tackle. They could collect some sample packs. We sent some materials. This was at the Hubbard County Coalition of Lake Associations. This was at the Hubbard County Fair. They collected over 4 pounds of lead there. We had a coworker, her family did this event at their church for some families in the summer. The Great Lakes Aquarium has been a great partner of ours in Duluth. They have a box in their lobby. They've had one there since May to help encourage people to bring them in. We've worked really closely with the Isaac Walton League and some of their chapters. This was the Cass County chapter. They pooled some of their chapter funds. They set up shop at Rendezvous Brewing in Hackensack. And if people brought in 4 ounces of lead, they got a beer ticket and some lead-free tackle. So we were just so surprised at the different creative ways that organizations found to bring this to their community and bring it to their community in ways that we couldn't have imagined. We are working with the National Loon Center in Cross Lake. So they have, they opened their small visitor center gift shop area in Cross Lake this summer as a place where they'll take lead tackle as well. And then this is the Crooked Township Lakes and Shores group. They bought out 2 booths at their corn feed event. And they, if people brought in any lead, they got entered in a drawing for a rod and reel combo. I met the people that were organizing this in St. Paul, and they collected over 20 pounds of lead. So, and I was like, I'll take care of that for you. I'll bring it on to get it recycled. So we're just really looking forward to next summer when I know a lot of people in their lake associations, they've maybe gone somewhere warmer by now, right? They are maybe in their communities. And so we're really looking forward to growing this reach. And we couldn't have done hardly any of these this summer. We really are thankful for all of these partners getting on board with us and taking this up as their mission for the summer too. Because I think by the end of the summer, we collected over 200 pounds of lead, which is a great amount to think about. That's not in our water, and it's not posing a danger to wildlife. So a few closing points. I always end with this of thinking of like, what can you do if you are an angler, or maybe if you have an angler in your life. buy lead-free tackle. We're really trying to encourage people to slowly start to make the switch. And I acknowledge fully that I know the cost involved there. I cleaned out my tackle box and I was like, oh, I have to start all over now. So, and it's a slow process, and we know it takes some time too, but this is change for the better
Oh, I mean,
for all of us. And so if you do have lead tackle, if you're like, oh, I need to clean this out, has to go to your local household hazardous waste site. Please share with others the dangers of lead. That's a big one I encourage kids to do. I especially encourage kids to talk to older people in their lives about this. I say, your voice to them means way more than mine. So talk to the other people you're fishing with. And then we also really want people to stay safe and protect their health when fishing and hunting by washing your hands before you're eating and drinking, especially in this season of deer hunting too, to make sure that any venison that you have is free, does not have any lead fragments in it. Also too, I know this isn't really what we're thinking of now, Minnesota, but being a loon safe boater is something that we're also really trying to promote as well. There's a lot of research that's being done in other parts of the country about the dangers of wake boats and how dangerous those are to shorelines and thinking, and then that's where loons are nesting. So they're dangerous to loons in their nesting areas too. So, and would love to talk about next steps with your group or let you think about all this. I will put my information up here. Lynn and Curtis also have my email. We are on Facebook and Instagram as well, if you want to come and see what we're doing over there. And I'll leave that there for a second if anybody's writing anything down. And I'll stop my share. So if anybody wants to ask me any questions, I don't have to look at my black screen anymore.
Sure, I
So-
can start off. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, I was just wondering, you said that any lead needs to be safely disposed of, and that would be at the transfer, or it says, where would you put it?
Yeah, so this gets to Lynn, really making sure people know that lead can't go in the garbage and can't go in your household recycling, that you have to take it to, if you have a household hazardous waste center, I think you said
Okay.
a transfer station. So because it's hazardous waste, so it has to be disposed of properly. Just so we don't have people thinking, oh, I'm gonna get rid of this and put it out for, their garbage collector to pick up with their household recycling.
Okay.
What'd you do with that 800 pounds you collected this year?
So some of that I brought in to get recycled in St. Paul. And then the other organizations, we really tried to connect them with their local sites too, to say like, whatever you collect, you can bring that to your local community. So I do have a small amount still in my garage that I need to drop off in St. Paul too.
What do they do with it?
So, lead is still used in batteries. So I know that there is Dakota Smelting over in Egan. And so I would wager that a lot of the lead that gets turned in probably goes over there to the smelter.
Well, this curiosity question, it's got kind of changing the subject here, but I'm on Grace Lake, and we have loons all summer long, and usually, one or two together. And this summer, for the first time I've ever seen this, 4 or 5 in a bunch. Is that something going on there, or is that unusual, or?
Were they successful with their nesting? Were there any chicks?
No, I've been trying. I have a loon nest. I've had it off for like 10 years. We have too much traffic on there, so not successful.
So I bet those 4 or 5 were probably bachelors, or they were, they were making a little float. They might not have had, they could have been younger loons without a home territory. I wonder what happened to your nesting pair though. That's the interesting question.
What's bigger, the male or female?
I don't think that there is a noticeable size difference.
Because there is a big difference between some are pretty big.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, Rick,
I
I'm
gotcha.
gonna tell you I don't know. And that's a loon fact that's escaped me right now.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Has there been any discussion about trying to restrict the sale or the use of lead?
Thanks, Carl, for that question. So as a program, we cannot get involved with any kind of legislative advocacy around that. There are other states in the country, especially in the Northeast, that have legislation on the books, and that has to do with the sale of, like, under an ounce, like it's like an ounce or less, right? So if you think of a fishing jig, I have some really big jigs here at my house, and I'm like, what kind of fish are you going to catch with a 3/8 ounce jig? So we're talking about getting all that smaller stuff out, because at a certain size, a loon is not going to be able to ingest it anyway. So there is always talk, Carl, and unfortunately the talk just kind of dies out after a little while. But as a private citizen, I'm very hopeful.
Because I hunt and fish a lot, and waterfowling, they've outlawed lead shot before I even started.
Yes.
There was a lot of crying, wailing, and gnashing of teeth when that happened. Now people just do it. And I've
And
made
you just adjust.
in deer hunting and ice fishing. I just haven't made that open water fishing adjustment yet.
Yeah. And I know my coworker is a deer hunter, and I know that he was having trouble sourcing lead-free last fall. He was able to get some copper this year. So, but yeah, it's a sourcing thing too. But
So Carl or Kelly, could you inform me what's the extent of the prohibitions to lead in Minnesota for hunting or fishing?
There aren't any for fishing. And for hunting, it's only waterfowl. Well, actually, waterfowl and upland game birds, you're not allowed to use. For waterfowl, you're not allowed to use lead at all. And for upland game birds, you're not allowed to use lead on state lands or federal lands.
yep. Curtis and Lynn, I've gone over my time. I know you put me first on the agenda. I am so thankful. Thank you guys for reaching out to us, and let's please keep in touch. I don't know if you guys maybe you're an active lake association year round. I don't know. I thought most of them kind of picked up in the springtime.
Yeah, well, this will be our last meeting of the season, and then our first meeting is in March.
Okay.
But we have a website that goes all year long, and I will certainly get this recording out. I'll post it on YouTube on our channel.
Okay.
So that it'll be perpetually there. Let's see, I had another question about the, oh yeah. So are people literally willing to just give back their tackle, or do they kind of expect something in return? Because maybe we could set up something at a booth or something somewhere, but I'm guessing that people won't just turn it in without a replacement.
So one thing that we did this summer, and here, it's falling apart. So this is the version of the sample pack that we had this summer, and we're making some changes to it. So we're phasing out these egg sinkers because it's not really a very popular type of tackle. It is steel. And that was a question I had, especially for the Crooked Lakes Township and Shores group. I said, were people upset when you just gave them some sample packs? Like, because to your question, Curtis, I know, like, I filled up like a peanut butter jar worth of tackle with my tackle, my grandfather's tackle, my dad's tackle, I had everybody's tackle boxes, and I just cleaned them all out. And it is a lot. And we really want to be equitable and fair. to people who are turning in a lot. But I'll say from that group of having 20 pounds of tackle, I had a lot of those round split shot containers that are segmented out. That was a lot of what people turned in. And I say, like, if we can get more tin split shot out there, that's less lead split shot loons are eating. And so we asked that question to our partners this summer, and there wasn't that much pushback. Like, people weren't upset about what they were getting. And it's definitely a fair question, Curtis, because we've wondered that too, especially with looking at what would a tackle exchange look like now. In the past, those were set up at, Gander Mountain. They had all kinds of boxes of different types of tackle. People would bring their tackle in, but they would tell them it wasn't a 1-for-1. And,
So
that's,
it sounds like it could, I mean, if they're bringing in a whole peanut butter jar, it's like 100 to 1 or 50 to 1. It's not very much, right?
right. So, and this summer, I'm not sure how much people were bringing in at a time. So, and what I really hope is people think like, oh, am I ever going to use that tackle and it's lead? Can I just get rid of it out of my tackle box? So it's a really good question and something that we want to make sure that we're fair to people with, because we want to help move people in this direction in a great way.
Okay, and one more question on this. What reception have you had? I'm no government employee, so you have to be careful with the lines, but have you got any programs or participation and or resistance from sports dealers, sports hunting dealers? Because that seems like a logical place to have return places right there at the counters. Do you have any information on that?
That is like the next phase of what we're starting to do right now in year 2 of the program, is really work on getting more lead-free tackle into bait and tackle stores, because we hear from people, I want to buy lead-free, where do I go? And not everybody wants to buy stuff online. Some people have their local bait shop that they want to go and buy from. And so we're currently working on the logistics of that with Fish and Wildlife Service and with our agency as well, of how we can get lead-free tackle to these bait shops. And then hopefully if they'll just put a box, I know some of our partners have just brought some of our collection boxes to their local bait shops. If people want to turn stuff in there too. So I haven't heard anything negative yet, Curtis.
Okay, and do you have an so-called official box for return that's coming through your agency?
Like our collection kits?
Yeah, your collection kits. Could we get some of those if you have them and ask dealers if they want to put them on their counter?
Absolutely. And you know what, Curtis? So that was just a way for us to mail things. So we would mail everything in this box and say, dump out the sample packs and people can put their tackle into this cardboard box. It was kind of a 2-in-1. But we also know that some places they may have wanted to put a plastic container out or something. So we have all kinds of stickers. Like if you have a different kind of vessel you want to use, that is more than fine. And we're more than happy to send supplies your way as well.
Hey, any other questions for Kelly?
Yeah, one more question. I saw that Go Dogs in your background. This is beaver territory you're talking to.
What territory am I talking to, Rick?
Beaver territory.
Beaver
Dogs,
territory.
You must be in Duluth, aren't you?
I am in the Twin Cities, but I went to the University of Georgia. So that's a Go Georgia.
What's that Go Dogs back? Well, that's Georgia.
That's a Georgia Bulldogs back
I thought it was Duluth Bulldogs. Okay. I forgive you then.
Okay, but Rick, fun fact, I grew up in the other Duluth. I grew up in Duluth, Georgia. So,
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're okay then.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Now, do I have the host abilities returned?
Let me see if I can unhost myself.
That's a new verb.
I will just, Curtis, I think I will just make you, I will make you the host now.
Yeah. And
You
we
are now
all,
the host.
okay,
Thank you guys so much. Please be in touch with me. This was so
Kelly.
great.
you.
Surprise of November. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you all. I hope we can stay in touch and work together next
Thank
summer,
you.
especially.
And we love loons.
thank you very
We love
much.
Loons too. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
All right. Bye
Take
now,
care.
Kelly. And for those who joined us that we don't normally see, please be aware that we are more than happy to have you at all times. I saw at least three people joined us today that I have not met before. And if you're in Beltrami County, please feel free to keep coming back to BCLARA meetings. We'd certainly appreciate it.
Curtis, do you want to stop recording now so that the
Yes. Okay, that's the next thing.